Is this close enough?
Hello everybody, welcome to Georgia Bushcraft. If this is the first class today for you, then I hope you're going to enjoy it and have fun. I'm Anne-Marie Bilella, also known as the Forager Chick. I'm one of the instructors with Fuel the Fire, our co-op of amazing people. And I am a forager, full-time, that's my job, foraging always, and I love to teach people on how to forage and how to make herbal remedies from what they forage. So you can make a living doing this kind of thing. It's great. So how many people here hunt mushrooms? All right, a couple, just a couple. How many are brand new to mushrooms completely? Couple. All right, all right. Well, kind of a funny story is I've only liked mushrooms about half of my lifetime. My first early part of life, I hated mushrooms because my only experience with mushrooms was button mushrooms. Slimy, nasty things. I'd pick off every single one off of my pizza so it didn't touch. Until I found a shiitake mushroom. I didn't find a shiitake mushroom. Somebody came to my house and taught a shiitake class and made this amazing dip with it. And I was like, this is a mushroom dip? It was amazing. It was so good. So after that, we started foraging for mushrooms and we found morels that same day. And so once you find a morel, I don't know if anybody here has ever found one, they're pretty amazing, right? You're hooked on these mushrooms. And so then I became obsessed. I was like, oh my gosh, how many other mushrooms are out there? I need to find these mushrooms and eat them. So I went crazy. First I learned herbs. That was my first part of herbalism and foraging. And then I was like, I need to learn all these mushrooms. And it's an ongoing process. So with mushrooms and herbs, you have to continue to practice. That's the main thing in order to learn it properly. So if you guys are here, you want to learn a little bit about mushrooms and how to identify them, right? So the first thing we need to do is I want to draw a mushroom for you. And I'm going to point out the parts of a mushroom. Because a lot of people will just see a mushroom and they're like, what is that? Let me go to Google and check it out. You're going to be wrong. Okay, they're not going to give you the right answer. So with the mushroom, we have a stem or stalk. Typical mushroom has a cap and a stem, right? That's probably the ones that you guys know about. So this is a stem, which is also called a stalk or a stipe. Under the cap of the mushroom, we'll see if anybody can answer this. Most mushrooms that you eat from the grocery store, what do they have on the underside? Gills. Gills. All right, that's not the only thing that's under a mushroom, but in your gilled mushrooms, family of gilled mushrooms, that's where your deadly mushrooms live. So all of the deadly mushrooms out there, with the exception of one, has gills. So for beginners, gilled mushrooms are pretty hard. You don't want to go out there and just dive right in and try to identify every mushroom that has gills out there. So sometimes with these gilled mushrooms, they could have other characteristics on them. They could have what's called a skirt on the stem. When you see a mushroom like this in the ground, you should dig it up because under the ground there could be a structure. And when we dig up this particular mushroom, and we'll tell you what it is in a minute, it's going to have a little sac under there. And if you were to cut the mushroom right there, you would never see that. This mushroom that has a sac on it with a veil and gills, this is a completely white mushroom, is a destroying angel. You will die from this mushroom. Veil. That's this little skirt right here. So what happened was this skirt covered up. Have you ever bought like a young mushroom from the grocery store and it has like a little covering over the gills? Has anybody seen that? It's called a veil. It's just a little covering. When the mushroom cap grows up, it leaves this little skirt on the stem. So if you saw this mushroom out there and it was all white, don't post it on Facebook and say, can I eat this? There's a saying, there's old mushroom hunters and there's bold mushroom hunters, but there are no old, bold mushroom hunters. You will die. You won't die today. You'll get sick tomorrow. And then by the next day and the next day, you're going to have liver failure, kidney failure. If you do get to the hospital, by chance, you're like, oh crap, I ate a mushroom and I don't know what it is. Let me get to the hospital. You might be able to be saved. Your liver might be able to be saved, but you're going to be on dialysis the rest of your life. So time is of the essence. Never eat a mushroom you don't know. Okay, not to scare you, but to scare you, because you need to know that. For your kids too, for your dogs. Because dogs are notorious for going to pick mushrooms, right? So this mushroom started out, I'm just going to show you this, and then I'm going to show you some mushrooms. Started out like a little egg. Just a little old egg. Then, as it grew, the stem started to pop out, and the cap started to pop out. And then it grew to this. So anytime you're looking at mushrooms, dig around there and see if there's other mushrooms that look like it too, so that you can have some identifying characteristics of it. But if you see this mushroom, it's a no-go. Now, there's a couple of other things. Do we have an eraser by chance? So gills are one thing that can be under a mushroom. Does anybody know another type of surface that can be on a mushroom where the spores come out? Pores. Somebody said pores. And what this means, so where these gills are, that's where the little spores come out, the little seeds to make more babies. Okay? So you could have pores. Does anybody know another? Teeth. We'll leave it at those for now. So they could have gills, pores, or teeth. Now, when you're seeing a mushroom, take down as much information that you can find about this mushroom. For example, right here, we have a lion's mane. You guys don't know that yet, but I'm going to pass this around. But let's see first, can you name something about this mushroom? Just first thing that comes to mind. Describe it. Spongy. And white. I heard something over there. Scary? Hairy. Yeah. It has teeth. I'm going to pass this around. And this grows on a tree, on wood. All right, so those are things that you would need to write down in your little notebook, right? You could say, I found this mushroom. It's white. It's on a tree. It's kind of like hairy. It has little teeth and spines. If you write all those things down, and then you could go to Google and say what you found, it'll come back. Is this your mushroom? It's a lion's mane. Yes, it is. There is no look-alike to this mushroom, this particular species, that looks like this, that you can mix it up with. Here, pass it around so everybody can see. Here's a little one you can pass around. It looks like a brain. See? Use your power of observation. Be a kid, you know? Say, okay, this feels spongy. This has got little teeth on it. It's white. It's a delicious edible mushroom, lion's mane. You can make crab cakes with it. You could make steaks with it. I know you meat eaters don't believe me, but I have made something out of it, and the guy's not in class right now, but it came out like brisket. Swear. So it was.
I'll attest to that. Every time I've eaten anything she makes.
Where in the United States does that
So that mushroom, lion's mane, grows right now. I'm only going to share mushrooms that are growing right now, so you could have 3 mushrooms that you could go out and search for. That grows all over the United States as far as I know. I'm only from the East Coast, but the whole East Coast, it grows on hardwoods, particularly oaks. Grows from now until March. Is that right? Would you say March? Thereabouts? Did you? Yeah, yes, you can find them in the summertime, but right now it's all over the internet that people are finding the lion's manes. We just had the moisture in the air and people will find them. When you find them, they're not that small. That's a cultivated one. They're going to be about this big.
They're not way high up.
They are way high up, so you got to get a little creative with those bamboo poles, put a little paint scraper on it, or you could get one of those retractable fishing poles and squish it. I've climbed on top of cars and things and dangerous things, but and if you could climb a tree, great. If you're lucky enough, you could walk up upon one and it's right there, you know, right there in front of you. Isn't that cool? So let's talk about this then for a minute. Not a mushroom, but we're going to see how we could get you guys to learn mushrooms. What is this? How do you know it's a strawberry? The color, the shape, what else? Describe it, the texture. You've known this fruit since you were born, right? You've seen this thousands of times at the grocery store, on your plate maybe. If you don't like strawberries, somebody has showed you this mushroom over this fruit over 1,000 times. So you know this. There is no way that I could tell you that this is a strawberry. Is it? Why? You see that fruit? It's a raspberry. But what's different about a raspberry from a strawberry? Does anyone? Not only smaller, it's smaller, yeah.
The composition.
Texture, the composition, right? It has like little droops of fruit on there.
Stem on the top.
What else about it?
It's got a hole.
It's hollow. Once the cap comes off, it's hollow, right? It's hairy. Have you ever noticed that? It's a hairy. So you know these two fruits. So that's how you're going to learn mushrooms, okay? You're going to go and see these mushrooms, and if you don't have one near you, you can find somebody that has mushrooms or look at a book, and you're going to study that lion's mane mushroom for like the next 2 weeks. You're going to look up everything. I'm giving you homework. You have to do this. You can look this mushroom up and everything about it and see what it's good for. Good for your brain. It's really good for your brain. It's what? It's shaped like a brain. There's a saying that what it looks like, it's called the doctrine of signatures, what it looks like is what it treats. So yes, perfect for the brain, regenerating nerve cells, the whole good thing, all good things like that. Plus it's delicious, right? So then I have, no, we'll do this one first. We pass this bag around. Everybody take one of those. This is a turkey tail mushroom. They're going around and everybody's going to take one. And then I want you to feel it and I want you to describe it to me. What's your first instinct that you're touching this young man right here? You touch, huh? It's hard. Well, it's dried, but what about the top? How does it feel? Soft? Anybody else? It's got little ridges on it. It's fuzzy. It's got velvety. What about the back side? What does it look like on the back? It's white.
Look at that shell, isn't it?
It kind of looks like a shell, right? It's white. It's actually a pore, polypore. So this one has, instead of gills, it has pores. So on the underside, it has lots of little holes. Some you cannot see. And that's where the spores come out. So if you were to take a magnifying glass to this, you would be able to see the pores in there. But they also have concentric zones of color. I know there's a bag going all the way. Make sure everybody gets one. Because I want you to feel it. It's all about the textural, tactile. That's how I learned too. You know, you got to feel, touch, taste, everything to know more about it. So it has concentric zones of colors on it. If you look at it, they call it a turkey tail because it looks like a turkey tail. It has all those colors on it. And this one in particular is like blue with a little bit of stripes, and it has a white margin on the very end of it. These are out right now. They grow on wood. You can find them everywhere. They're really good medicinally. You can't eat them because they're very tough. But you can make a tea with them. You could put them in soup stock. Does anybody here make their own bone broth? Couple of people. You can take a handful of these turkey tails and put them in there, and you'll get all the good polysaccharides out of there for your immune system. So it'll help your immune system be stronger. You can make tea with it. There's so many different things. You could dry it like it is when it's dehydrated, and then you can put it in a coffee grinder, a really good one, and you can fill capsules if you want. But you could tincture it in alcohol and make an alcohol extract with it. So really good stuff. Turkey tails in Asia, for somebody going through chemotherapy and radiation, they actually inject a serum from the turkey tail along with shiitake to negate the effects that the radiation and chemo is doing to your body. Yeah. So can't do that here, but you could definitely take it if you're going through any of those. There used to be a doctor here that did that. He's no longer here. I have another mushroom for you, which I'll show you in a minute. But if you're in the southeast, how many are from this area? From the southeast, pretty much everybody. Anybody from the northeast? Okay, so same, they have a book just like it. This is called Mushrooms of the Southeast by Todd Elliott. I highly recommend it. There's one, Mushrooms of the Northeast, and it's either by Todd Elliott or the Bissettes. But very good book. If you have the Audubon Society mushroom book, throw it out because it's not helpful to any beginner whatsoever. There's 970 mushrooms in there, I think, and which about 10 you might find. So this one is broken up into different sections, and it has really good pictures and descriptions of the mushrooms as well. So this one's by Todd Elliott. hmm he lives in North Carolina. And then this one is How to Forage for Mushrooms Without Dying. Right? That's the whole point, right? Foraging without dying. Because I bet you a lot of you are scared to go out there and get your own food. But everybody goes out, they'll hunt, right? Because you know what a squirrel looks like, you know what a deer looks like, so you feel safe about that, so you'll hunt it. Well, with mushrooms, once you practice, you know how the saying goes, do something 100 times and then you know it? So if you do it 100 times, you'll know it and you'll be able to find food out there. But this is a good book, Foraging, How to Forage for Mushrooms Without Dying by Frank Hyman. I want to go back for a minute before I explain this other mushroom about toxins and your body, of what happens with mushrooms. There's some mushrooms that are not deadly, but they're poisonous. So every mushroom, almost every mushroom has a look-alike. And it's more important for you guys to know the look-alike to that mushroom than just the mushroom. Does that make sense? Okay, because like the lion's mane, I told you already, there really isn't a look-alike to this particular species, the pom-pom. There's a look-alike to one of the other ones, but you're probably going to find this one more than the others. With mushrooms, you could get sick from mushrooms, especially if they're not cooked. All mushrooms have to be cooked, even your store-bought ones. And I know people think, wait, I eat those raw on my salad. Well, some people can't process that. Mushrooms are made of chitin. They have chitin in them, and your body cannot process that. So even if you are eating those raw button mushrooms, they're just going right through you. You're not absorbing any of those nutrients whatsoever. So with wild mushrooms, absolutely, without a doubt, you must cook all the mushrooms, okay, for sure. But mushrooms, some mushrooms, like we talked about the amanitas will get you sick usually the next day. So it's like 6 or more hours. If you get sick in 6 or more hours from when you ate something, more than likely you ate a deadly mushroom. That's when you go to the hospital. If you get sick within 4 hours, normally 2 hours, you're vomiting, going to the bathroom, you just ate a toxic mushroom. You might wish you were dead because of the feeling that you got, but you're not going to die from that. So that's a good idea. That's why positive identification is really important. So you know that you know your mushrooms. Okay. Has anybody eaten a lion's mane before? A few people? All right, cool. So if you've eaten it, you usually know it better too, right? How about the turkey tails? Anybody had turkey tails in anything before? You have? A couple of people? All right. All right. Well, those you can find in abundance. So if you go out later even, look in the woods. I think the trails, they're allowed to walk the trails, right? Look in the woods on some dead trees, dying trees, and you'll find these. Find me if you're not sure. Find me around here. I'm usually around this area, and I will identify it for you. But just remember the one that you have in your hand, it's fuzzy, so you'll be able to identify it. There's a couple of lookalikes out there, but there's plenty. I mean, they start now and they go all the way through to springtime, and you can just gather as many as you can, and we'll probably not take all of them from here, but get a handful or so, and you could go home and you have to dehydrate your mushrooms. Don't let your mushrooms air dry on the shelf, because what's going to happen, think about this. When mushrooms are out there, they're the only things with moisture in them, mushrooms and plants. So what's going to go towards that moisture and water? Insects, bugs, right? They got to eat. Insects will lay eggs in these mushrooms. And if you air dry these, you got to get a little squeamish here. If you air dry these and you put them in a glass canning jar, in about 6 months' time, you're going to see things moving around in the bottom of that jar. Little black things just crawling around. They laid those eggs and they were just fine, and they're in there, and then they're eating all your mushrooms. So if you put them in a dehydrator, or some people will say put it in the freezer and then dehydrate as an extra precaution, you'll kill all the eggs. So, I know. That's the one thing about mushrooms. They can have insects in them a lot. especially oyster mushrooms. Anybody here ever eaten oyster mushrooms? A few of them, a few people. All right, well, oyster mushrooms in the wild, I don't have any because I didn't find any, are white. And they look like a big, kind of like a shell. They have gills, and the gills come down the stem. So instead of the mushroom being gills like this, oh, let's see, I don't know about this one, if I could draw this. The gills will come down the stem. That's a really terrible oyster mushroom, by the way. But anyway, they grow down the stem. But oyster mushrooms, the first time I cooked oyster mushrooms, I found a whole butt ton of them and brought them home, and I had them on a cutting board. And I was cutting them up, and I don't wash my mushrooms. I usually just like brush the dirt off of them if I have to, and that's about it. I only pick clean mushrooms. Well, I'm cutting them up, and I walk away to do something else on the stove, and I come back, and my cutting board has movement on it. I'm like, why is my mushrooms moving? And then I got a little closer look, and there were these little teeny tiny worms in there, little white worms, and they were moving. So from now on, I was like, I didn't need that extra protein. I don't need that at all. Those are the mushrooms I do soak in salt water. And I harvest them. I put them in a bowl of cold salted water just for about 5 minutes or so. And I swish it around, and all the critters go to the bottom. And then you just pull the mushrooms out and put them on a towel and dry them. Don't dump them in a drain, because then they're just going to go right back in there. So that's one way of doing it, yeah. I didn't want that extra protein. The same with morels. Morels, we don't soak them though. You swish them. You swish them in some water just to get, because morels are hollow, and they could have like little creepy crawlers in there, and they could be rather large. And that's not, yeah. We don't want to see one of those in there. But yeah, chanterelles are a summer mushroom. They're a golden mushroom. They do have gills, but they're false gills. So they're not like a blade-like gill where you could scrape out. Like if you've ever stuffed a portobello mushroom, you scrape out the gills most of the time and then you stuff it. So chanterelles have a false gill. It's kind of like it was melted on there. It's branched a little bit, but they're golden, kind of like her shirt, a little bit, couple of shades off of that, and a little bit, not quite so orange, but you could find them plentiful when you have them. This year we didn't. Down here, it was terrible rainy, non-rainy season. So I think we got 1 week of chanterelles, and that's about it. But so another mushroom that's out right now is called the hen of the woods, which is this big one right here. This is only a piece of one. Last week, a friend of mine called me and said, hey, the hens are back, so mushrooms will come back in the area that you've seen them the year before, most of the time. And when hens grow, this is a polypore, and I'll pass it around in a moment, but when these grow, they become huge most of the time. You've seen the cultivated ones, probably in the Asian grocery store. They're about the size of your hand. These things, each one can be in upwards of 15 to 20 pounds. We found 33 pounds last week. Well, we didn't find, they were there, I just had to pick them. So 33 pounds of mushrooms, and so I became Forrest Gump with the mushrooms, but I brought stuff to share with you guys too. And on the back side of this mushroom, because this one was cut in half, on the back side you can see the little pores on there, and I'm going to pass this around so you can see it. As this mushroom grows, it looks like, the reason why they call it hen of the woods, is it looks like a hen, a chicken, when it fluffs up its feathers. And all the little petals come out, and it gets taller instead of broader. So the mushroom will start at like the little crevices of the oak trees, but then it gets bigger and rounder. But it's a pretty dense, meaty mushroom. I'll pass on this side this time.
Yeah.
That's not one. Okay. It's a very meaty mushroom. They call it the umami. I always say the word wrong, umami, whatever that flavoring for. It's very savory mushroom. No, not a chicken of the woods. So the other name for the hen of the woods is called maitake, which is known as the dancing mushroom. And it's a mushroom that is not only delicious, it's good for blood sugar and weight loss. So pretty good mushroom. But it's really meaty. You can make anything you could do with beef or chicken, you could do with this mushroom. But like Andrea just said, she asked me if that was chicken of the woods. Totally different mushroom. So hen of the woods only grows in the fall, always. It's only for about 3 to 4 weeks. That's it. And chicken of the woods can grow almost year round. Chicken of the woods is orangey, bright yellow coloring, and you can see it from a mile away. You could walk up on top of these and you won't see them. You really have to be looking. But you look for your oldest oak trees. I mean the oak trees that are so big it takes like 4 people to put their arms around it. And those are the oak trees you need to look for. And then you look at the base of them in the little crevices where the roots are coming out, and that's where you'll find that mushroom. So that mushroom, you can cook it a bunch of different ways. You can fry it up like any other mushroom with butter, salt, pepper, garlic. You could roast it in the oven, which is what I did. And I roasted it with olive oil, salt, pepper, and then I marinated it with lemon juice, olive oil, garlic, thyme, bay leaf, and rosemary. And I'm going to pass it around so you guys get to taste it because it's all about the snacks. So we'll pass that around in the meantime. And it's really delicious. I hope you like it. Does JJ like it? Is it JJ approved?
It's JJ approved.
Okay, all right.
I've never had anything that you made that wasn't JJ approved. You have to tell them about the Chick-fil-A sandwiches.
Okay, I will. All right, I'll do that right now. Not to confuse you with the hen of the woods. So chicken in the woods usually comes in like hen of the woods, and I get like 20 or 30 pounds. Most of it I usually sell because that's what I do for a living is I sell what I find. But we were having a class, and I like to treat my people to lunch. And so I made them a fried chicken of the woods sandwich, which could rival your Chick-fil-A. I'm not kidding. You take the little chicken mushroom, you blanch it in hot water, and then you soak it in pickle juice, because did you know that's what they do at Chick-fil-A? They soak the chicken in pickle juice. Then you bread it in seasoned flour, egg, panko breadcrumb, fry it, stick it on a bun with some pickles, mayonnaise, whatever else you like on it, and they ate it.
I had
Three
like
of them.
6 of them.
Oh my goodness.
So good.
So yeah, you can get lots of food from the forest, and it's protein. You know, I'm not a big meat person. I do chicken and fish, but I get most of my protein from mushrooms, and I eat mushrooms every day.
She has been able to fool people too
Yes.
before with it. Like you literally think you're having Chick-fil-A.
Yep.
It's that good.
I even fool my husband, and he's eaten it a lot of times. He goes, "Oh, this is a great chicken sandwich." I'm like, "It's chicken in the woods, honey." And then I also made out of it some hen of the woods teriyaki mushroom jerky. So if somebody after class is interested, they're $8 a bag. And on that note, I have 2 things to show you. I have the Forager Chick's Wild Mushroom Journal and Logbook. And this just helps you if you want to, if you find a mushroom, you could describe it here. You could draw it or take a picture, put that in here, and document it in this book. The more you're doing the work than just reading out of a book, the more you learn. You know, like you take notes at all your classes, I hope, because the more you do that, the better it is for you. So I have that book, that's 15, and then cookbook, Wild Eating with Forager Chicks, all kinds of wild goodness in there. Not just mushrooms, wild greens, and stuff like that. So, and then I teach classes other than being here, of course. I teach out of the Monroe area. And one of my students back here, I do homeschooling with Miss Brooke back there in Odin. So I do a lot of homeschool groups as well. And I have an online school too. So I do have some business cards. If you guys want to check it out, by all means do. You can find me on all the social Forager Chick. And you can definitely grow your own mushrooms. So if you don't want to go out there and forage, then you can totally grow on your own. There's a low-tech way of growing oyster mushrooms. You grow them in your house, or if you have a barn or a garage, you just pasteurize your straw. You just buy straw from the garden center. You could either get the big old bale, or you could, like I always get the bale that's already cleaned and chopped because I don't want to chop it all up. And you could bring it to a boil on your stove if you want, or I throw it in a metal trash can because I do a whole bale at once, and I pour boiling water over it and let it sit for a few hours. Usually by the next morning it's still hot, and then I take it out and I put a whole bunch of sawdust spawn, which is the mushroom mycelium, and I mix it in there, and then I put it in buckets, like the Home Depot buckets, and I drill holes in there and I grow mushrooms out of it. You could also do it out of the little bags like they did as well. Shiitakes you could grow on logs if you have a lot of hardwoods around, especially we have a ton of sweet gum. So you could drill a bunch of sweet gum logs. They can't be logs that have been on the ground for a really long time. They got to be fresh. So within the month, ideally within 2 weeks. And you could drill them, and then you could inoculate those logs, and you will have crops of shiitakes, talk about a sustainable crop, for 5 to 6 years. So as long as you take care of them. If you put them out in the hot sun, you kill them. You know, sun kills mushrooms. So we definitely need water for the mushrooms. So those are pretty good to grow. Let's see, any other questions?
Yeah, what about truffles?
Truffles. I have yet to ever find a truffle. Anybody here ever found a truffle? I'll give you a hug if you did. No? No. So truffles do grow in Georgia. They grow around not just the pecan truffles, but they grow around oaks and pecans. Have you ever found one, Philip? So if you're in the woods and you happen to see like little digs from squirrels around a tree, all the way around a tree, that's where you're going to look, because they've already gone to. Or if you have a problem with hogs, well, you know, the hogs will definitely find them. I lost a morel area to hogs. I was wondering why for a few years it was always dug up and it was always either underwater, very muddy, and I hadn't found any morels there. It was 3 years in a row. This year I was on the other side of the creek where I really wasn't supposed to be, but we always found morels over there. And then all of a sudden, a hog was right there. I scared it, thank God, and it did the little scurry and ran off, and I was like, holy, you know what am I going to do now? But then I remembered that there's all this privet around me, and they can't climb trees. So I could climb trees. I learned they could swim, which I didn't know. But, so yeah, you do have to worry about critters in any mushroom hunting or any type of foraging. You're going to encounter the wildlife and lots of snakes. So if you're scared of snakes, have somebody else forage for you or push through that scare and continue on. But I hope you guys all do go out and forage and try to find some things. If you find anything this weekend, though, come back and find me and I'll identify it for you. Either me or Philip over there. He can identify stuff too. So, any other questions? No? Well, I hope
so all of them are edible once.
Once. And the only 3 you guys really need to focus on right now is the lion's mane, the turkey tail, and the hen of the woods, because those are all out right now, and that's what I would focus on. And if you could focus where focus goes, energy flows, just keep focusing on those. You never eat anything unless you know what it is. That's the #1 rule. All right, well, thank you guys.
Good job, man. Which is my cue. If you're Honey Smack digging the video, then like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and until next time, keep fueling those fires.